Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet before we go ahead and get started. As you know, we are multi-streaming all over the place, and we got to make sure that things are rocking and rolling before we just start popping off at the mouth. That would be a little bit strange if I'm just talking and nobody's on the other end. So let's make sure that we're up and at 'em. It looks like we're good on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Odyssey, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter, and Twitch is always just a few minutes behind, but it looks like we're online there as well. So that means we can go ahead and get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice. And it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today. We've got a lot of news to get into, as well as a little bit of a show update. Going to make a change to the program a little bit, so we're going to tell you what that is. But first, let's flesh out what we're talking about. We got a big question coming up. We got October we're in. We've got Halloween. We've got Thanksgiving. But are we going to have Christmas? Some people are already saying that Christmas is going to be canceled because we have a little bit of a supply chain problem going on around the country and the world. And so we're going to check in on that story because the Biden administration issued some new orders this week to sort of open up the ports so that people can get their goods. And there are some problems with that. So a lot of people have been looking around saying, is anybody going to solve this problem? Where are our leaders? And where is Pete Buttigieg, who is the Department of Transportation secretary over there? Turns out he was on paternity leave or something for the last 2 months or something. So we're going to take a look at what's going on there. We've got an interesting story out from Politico that is reporting all of this, and so we'll break that down. Then in our second segment, we're going to take a look at what's happening over out of the Justice Department because they just arrested and indicted a Capitol Hill police officer for obstruction of justice. This is a strange thing. He was allegedly involved in the January 6th riots, was communicating with somebody who was under investigation or maybe an undercover FBI person, we don't know. Person one, though, was in contact with this officer. The guy's name is Michael Riley. He was an officer currently, as I don't know if he's resigned yet, but for 25 years, they charged him with 2 counts of obstruction for sort of telling person one, maybe it's an FBI agent, I don't know, somebody who was on the inside of the government, telling them to delete messages on Facebook, and that's a big no-no when you're under investigation by the Where's Waldo team over from the FBI. So we'll take a look at that story. I have a copy of the indictment that was filed out of the D.C. Circuit Court, the D.C. Court there in Washington. So we'll take a look at what's going on there. And then in our last segment, we started to open up this can of worms yesterday on the show, but we didn't finish it, and we have to because it's a good one. This is Joe Rogan versus Dr. Sanjay Gupta over from CNN. He's the medical chief correspondent over there, and he went on the Joe Rogan show. This was, I think, 2 days ago, and it was kind of a disaster for him. He's supposed to be this world-renowned, scholar of all sorts of different things, and he went into, as he calls it, the lion's den, and Joe Rogan asked him a couple questions and made him look pretty foolish. And then yesterday, he kind of went out and was doing the rounds across the media saying, I went into the lion's den, and it was a very scary ordeal for me. And then he went on Don Lemon's show, and Don Lemon was not happy with Dr. Gupta either. So we're going to have to break that down. A lot of clips in that segment, a lot of good stuff. And if you recall, I got a strike from YouTube. It was later reversed. So it felt really good to hear Joe Rogan just dig into somebody who was spreading that horse dewormer hoax nonsense BS So we'll get into that segment later on here in a minute. And so before we move on, quick reminder, if you want to ask a question or be a part of the show, the place to do that is at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. There's a form over there, looks just like this. And if you can ask a question as we're going through the different segments, we'll make sure that we get to them as the broadcast carries on. We also have a Clips channel. We just crossed 1,000 subscribers over there. Thank you very much if you've gone there to support us in that quest. The address is over at the Clips channel. You can see it looks just like that, and that's where all the different clips will be going. So, quick update now on this YouTube channel. So here's what I've got. So for a long time on this channel, I was just uploading stuff, wasn't going live at all. Then we sort of shifted and we were just going live with very little uploads. And so I've been trying to figure out what the best format is on YouTube. YouTube has always been a home base for us for a long time, but I'm learning that there's a lot of reasons why live streaming is just not the best option on YouTube. The first one being that every time we do a live stream here, YouTube does a great job of promoting it while we're live. I can see everybody over there chatting away. We've got Zulu, we've got Danette, we have Itchy Nose, we've got Chris Banks and many others. But as soon as this live stream is over, YouTube basically archives the live stream and they don't distribute it out anymore. It doesn't go to anybody else really other than the people who already come to your channel and who are watching it live. And so that's really bad for distribution, and I can see it in my analytics and the numbers. And so I spoke to somebody who's got a channel with well over 3 million subscribers, and he said, you're doing it all wrong. And so what he's recommending, and I think he's absolutely right about this, is that we're going to do the show still, right? The regular Watching the Watchers show, but it's just not going to be live on YouTube, at least for an experiment. And we're just going to record it and then premiere it on YouTube, because when it's premiered on YouTube, it's recorded. It's not treated as a live stream. And so everybody can still get to interact on there, but it's not actually live. So we're going to record it quickly, well, not quickly. We're going to do the show as we do it, but it won't be live on YouTube starting next week. Then we're just going to upload the video. We're going to premiere it. It'll be a couple hours after our regular time, but this will help me sort of analyze what's going on with the channel, and it should start to be, to have more distribution there. So if you already come to Locals, then nothing's going to change for you. It's just a regular show. We're just going to broadcast it on Locals, and we'll still be on Rumble and Twitch, but just not live on YouTube. And if you come and watch the replays on YouTube, that's okay. They'll be out. It's just going to be a little bit later. It'll be a couple hours later because we got to do the show first before we upload the show. Also, so if you're a content creator, also another reason to do this is because of what we talk about. We get demonetized after every single live stream. So it takes about 48 hours for the remonetization to kick in. By that time, the show's kind of dead. We've moved on to the other topics of the news. Also, I'll be able now, if I go this way, to clip out the third segment, and so we can sort of talk about some of the spicier stuff back over on Local. So anyways, that change is going to be coming up. I know it's kind of a weird change. It feels kind of like, what the heck? That's kind of weird. We're not going to live stream on YouTube anymore, but we're still going to put the content out. It's going to be the exact same show. It's just not going to be live on there. So it will be a premiere, so everybody in the chat can still, continue to chat away. But that's just what's going to happen. And we're going to try it. If it doesn't work, we'll switch it right back. I'm tweaking things all over the place. But there's more information about that over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. So just wanted to pass that along. Hopefully nobody's too upset about that. If it doesn't work, well, we'll just change it back, because that's what we can do with all this stuff. Isn't that fun? But we'll see how it goes. All right, so enough of that. Thanks for indulging me on it. Let's get into the news of the day. Is Christmas canceled? That's what some headlines are saying. We're going to take a poke around and look at some of these things. One headline is saying that Christmas is maybe canceled. This is from Salesforce, major company here, says that their retail data indicates that there's a hefty price of a global supply chain crisis this holiday season. Says it predicts it's going to cost all of us this holiday season. And you may have been seeing a lot of hints about this. Do your shopping early. There's going to be shipping delays. You're seeing some of these prices go up all around the country. Gas prices are up. We're seeing food prices are up. The list goes on and on and on. Heating prices are going to go up, and you know the story. But is Christmas really canceled, or what are we going to do about this? Los Angeles Times is telling us that a tangled supply chain means shipping delays. Do your holiday shopping now. So maybe not a cancellation, but maybe that new toy is just not going to be here unless you are Johnny on the spot with your Christmas shopping. Another one says Christmas could be canceled. Or they're asking, or are we just needing to stop panicking? That's from Yahoo. Over here on the USA Today, they say, don't wait until Black Friday to start your holiday shopping. Here's why you need to shop now. And it's not just in the US, this is USA Today, but also in the UK. What they say? Not Brexit. US fears Christmas canceled over the container ship buildup. They say the UK is not the only nation gripped by fears that Christmas could be in jeopardy after major problems with US supply chains have been exposed. And that came out on October 11th, so just a few days ago. And a lot of people have been talking about this. They're going to grocery stores and they're looking at shelves that look like this, having flashbacks to 2020. And they're saying, oh, just went food shopping again. Thanks, empty shelves, Joe. That was trending on Twitter today. It says, I really love having to go every day now in order to find what used to take one trip. And so, many people are saying, well, Donald Trump, he had his own empty shelves. Remember that? And yeah, I certainly do. That was the first year of the pandemic, and you're supposed to sort of work yourself out of it. So I would not be expecting us to regress or go back to the same prior conditions. Oh, but it sounds like we might be, right? Because more people are dead from coronavirus this year in 2021 than there were last year. So I guess, yeah, maybe things actually will continue to get worse. Maybe that's just how this new trajectory is set. So empty shelves at the grocery stores a year into 18 months into the pandemic, almost 2 years. We're seeing that there are shipping containers down here at the port of Los Angeles. This was on October 13th, just stacked up, full of goods over there, just not going anywhere. And so we're seeing major bottlenecks of shipping containers. This was posted over from a website called Marine Traffic. If you take a look in here, then you can see that I think if I remember correctly, and I'm shooting here, these pink dots that you can see are the ones that are actually, stopped. They're actually sort of bottled up there. And so they're going into these ports. There's a port there. There's an Oakland port here. There's a San Francisco port here. You can see the little anchors around, right, for the different ports. And so they're just bottling up over there because the theory, the concept here, boats are coming in, but there's not enough people to move all the containers off the boats and then get them into the interstates and then spread them across the country. Truckers are, missing. People who are working at the ports are, missing. Many people are speculating as to why these things could be, but I don't know. Any other reason why people are not working these days? Could it have something to do with the mandates, or is that just a crazy thought? So Marine Traffic tells us that they are trying to readjust to get rid of the logjam. They say that some boats now, carriers, are going to be looking to move over to the port of Oakland. So sort of going from this direction here over to this direction here in Oakland and just rerouting a bunch of the shipping stuff because nobody wants Christmas canceled. That's for damn sure. Because there's a lot of stuff that, why else are you good all year if there's not a present for you? It's a good question. So Joe Biden is now springing into action, whatever that looks like for him. And they issued a fact sheet earlier this week, a couple days ago, and because they know this is a problem. This thing is coming up here. We've got this. It says, fact sheet, Biden administration efforts to address bottlenecks at ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. So, okay, they know this is a problem. And he's telling us that. He says President Biden knew that there would be massive economic challenges emerging from that pandemic. They acted quickly to get the economy moving again, passing and implementing the American Rescue Plans checks, getting checks in bank accounts, and then getting Americans vaccinated. How's that working out there for you guys? Not too good, is it? President, they say, launched the Supply Chain Disruptions Task Force in June, which is great. So hopefully they've got some answers for us, which included a focus on transportation and logistics bottlenecks to the U.S. economic recovery. After meeting with local government leaders, we've got some things that we're going to talk about. Somebody named John Porcari was appointed in August to help drive coordination between many private firms who control the transportation and logistics supply chain. So you see what's happening there, right? This is not a government problem. This is now a private industry problem, private firms. So they're going to bring on this person, John, to go and help coordinate these solutions that are going to be driven symbolically, figuratively, and literally. The little fact statement here says, these leaders, they're announcing a series of public and private commitments to move goods faster and to strengthen the resiliency of our supply chains. They're going to be moving towards 24/7 operations of the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. Oh, wow. So that's good. So they're going to be working around the clock. These are two very important ports. We have 40% of the containers in the U.S. coming through one of them. And so they're going to be able to move a lot more if they're working 24/7. So he gives us some specific guidance. Says the port of L.A. is going to expand to 24/7. They're adding new off-peak nighttime shifts, new weekend hours, and they're going to be able to move a lot of stuff. Similarly, the International Longshore and the Warehouse Union are going to announced its members are willing to work those extra shifts. So that's great. So they're going to be working 24/7, and a union is now saying that they're going to be working 24/7 as well. Perfect. So that's great. So all of these problems should just evaporate. And these are some of the private companies that are going to be involved in this. You can see Walmart's going into the mix. We have UPS is going to be increasing the use of its 24/7 operations. FedEx is committing. They're going to work increased nighttime hours. That's really nice. Samsung is also going to commit to moving nearly 60% more containers out of these ports. 72% of U.S. homes have at least one Samsung product. So yeah, it's good that they're all going to be working hard on this. Now, speaking of the private sector, Fox News had on somebody who is a toy maker who makes a lot of the toys. We're talking about Christmas. Is he going to be able to make the toys for the children and get them delivered into their Christmas trees? Down the chimneys? Well, I hope so. Let's see what he has to say about all this.
Well, with all due respect to President Biden, what he just ordered is too little, too late. It's only 72 days left to Christmas. And whether the ports are open 24 hours a day or 48 hours a day, you cannot get labor. If you cannot get labor, you cannot get trucks. You cannot get those merchandise out. And even if you get them out, it's going to be too late for Christmas. So I'm just going to show you one item. This here LOL Surprise movie Magic will be the #1 toy this holiday. We can only get about 60% of the product demand out to stores. 60%. That means a lot of kids are not going to be able to get LOL Movie Magic Surprise under the Christmas tree or Hanukkah tree this year. So I think this directive is too little, too late, and frankly, is a political gimmick to me.
It's a gimmick. And can you believe that? Little boys and girls are not going to get their LOL toys. And my friends, I mean, I don't know if Joe Biden has done a lot of bad things, but that's basically impeachable right there. But it really isn't a joke. This is a significant thing. People are paying all sorts of additional inflated prices. For a long time, they said that this was all transitory. These were just ebbs and flows that come naturally when you're involved in the middle of a pandemic. But it's been 18 months now. Are we still in those bottlenecks? I mean, we certainly are in a bottleneck, but if this was all transitory, is it all going away anytime soon? And where are we at with the 24/7 operations, by the way? Is this something that is happening right now? Not according to this person over on Twitter. Says no sign of 24/7 operations yet. Not a single truck spotted in any of the LA LB terminal in-gate cameras before 6:30 a.m. today. So it sounds like they're kind of on their regular schedule. And so Jen Psaki was asked about this back on Wednesday, and she was just kind of having fun with it. She's like, listen, I'm only the federal government spokesperson. So, federal shipping, it's just not within my purview. Don't ask me about it. Talk to FedEx if you want answers on that.
Based on everything being announced today, can this administration guarantee that holiday packages will arrive on time?
We are not the Postal Service or UPS or FedEx. We cannot guarantee. What we can do is use every lever at the federal government disposal to reduce delays, to ensure that we are addressing bottlenecks in the system, including ports and the need for them to be open longer hours so that goods can arrive. And we can continue to press not only workers and unions, but also companies to take as many steps as they can to reduce these delays.
Yeah, so she's kind of having fun with it, and she's just, it's not her responsibility, right? The U.S. Postal Service, that is kind of a federal entity, but it's also, it's complicated. And Joe Biden, the president, who you'd expect to be somebody who, was helping to solve these issues, he was, in fact, talking about his Build Back Better plan. It's all part of this Build Back Better. The entire pandemic catastrophe provides an opportunity to change things around. And so things are happening differently in the world today. There's no question about that. Joe Biden was doing something differently in a school today. Here's what that looked like. He was, promoting the Build Back Better plan. By yelling at the children, whispering at the children as he does. Here he is.
Keep people employed. I mean that sincerely. But pay your fair share. Just pay a decent portion.
All right. So Joe Biden's out there promoting Build Back Better. He's in the middle of a school and he's screaming at the kids, pay your fair share of taxes. So that's just amazing. Oh my gosh. So we've got a toy maker who's supposed to be making toys for the children. He's saying, we're doomed. We have Jen Psaki, who's making fun of federal transportation. She's blaming FedEx and UPS. Then we also have President Biden out there whispering around to the children, screaming at them to pay taxes. Is there anybody else that we can look to who's going to lead the country out of this supply chain crisis? Maybe the Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Remember this fella? This is what he looks like. He is over there at the U.S. Department of Transportation. Prior to joining the Biden-Harris administration, he was a mayor in his hometown of South Bend, Indiana. And guess what, though, folks? He did go to Harvard, and he did go to Oxford. So that way, obviously, he's highly qualified to solve all of the nation's ills when it comes to transportation. And so that's our guy there. That's our supply chain guy. That's our transportation guy. That's our ports, roads, rail, air, all of that. That's the guy. Well, where the hell has he been? Have you noticed that the airlines, a lot of the airplanes have been on the ground, a lot of flights being canceled, a lot of workforce problems, a lot of transportation issues all over the place. And so if Psaki's out, Biden's out, Kamala, who knows where she's been, and we have Buttigieg. Well, where the hell has he been? Turns out he was on paternity leave for the last 2 months. Politico reported this. Says they didn't previously announce it, but Buttigieg's office told the West Wing Playbook that the secretary has actually been on paid leave since mid-August to spend time with his husband, Chasten, and their 2 newborn babies. Oh, my gosh. Oh my gosh. And so, this is obviously just a can of worms. I mean, this is a spicy conversation to be having here. I'm not even qualified to have it because on the one hand, if you criticize it, you're automatically a homophobe and a xenophobe and a bigot and all of those things. And if you're somebody who well, I guess that's just it. I think I'm already a homophobe now. So, all right, let's go into the story. Politico says, can Pete Buttigieg have it all? So, fellow homophobes, Alex Thompson and Tina Fondelis, they say that Pete Buttigieg has been missing in action. While the U.S. ports face anchor-to-anchor traffic and Congress nearly melted down over the president's infrastructure bill in recent weeks, the usually omnipresent transportation secretary was lying low. One of the White House's go-to communicators didn't appear on TV, was absent on Capitol Hill during negotiations over the bill he had previously helped to sell to Congress. Fox News was trying to get Where's Pete to trend, trying to sort of puff this story up. They didn't previously announce it, but Buttigieg's office in the West Wing Playbook told the West Wing Playbook he's been on paid leave since mid-August, and it's now mid-October. So 60 days for maternity leave or paternity leave, whatever they're on. Here's a picture of the two. Now, listen, I don't have children. I don't know what it feels like to have a child like that, but I am genuinely happy for them, right? They look very happy. I'm sure that those 2 children are going to have nice lives. And I mean that genuinely, right? I want happiness. I want people to be cared for. I want a lot of good things to happen in the world. They look happy. That looks like a nice thing. I've got no problems with that at all, right? And I mean that genuinely. I'm not trying to be facetious about that, even though I get jokey with this stuff. But I mean that genuinely. It looks nice, looks happy. All that's well and good. My question is, does a senior level cabinet official, somebody who is very important to the functioning of the government, do they get 60 days off for paternity leave? What? Okay, so I don't know. Maybe they do. I mean, I don't know. But Politico doesn't seem to think so. They say for the first 4 weeks, according to a spokesman over there, he was mostly offline except for major agency decisions and that matters could not be delegated. They say he's been ramping up activity since then, and as he does that, he's going to continue to take some time over the coming weeks to support his husband and take care of the new children. Okay. Advocates of paternity leave cheered Buttigieg for setting an example that absolutely reflects the changing norms and the changing needs, said Dawn Hocklebridge. She's the director of Paid Leave for All. I'm thrilled the secretary did that and showed that work and family go together. But he didn't actually work for 60 days, is basically what it sounds like. In the past, cabinet secretaries felt compelled to come back sooner. For example, former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Julian Castro, took about a week or so of leave after his child was born, his spokesperson told us. In part, that's because cabinet secretaries, they're not eligible for the same family leave that other federal workers are. Individuals in the executive branch are appointed by the president to serve at the pleasure of the president. They don't earn leave time, and the president then can choose to allow him to take time off. So then they ask Biden, they say, hey, Joe, did you authorize this? Yes or no? White House officials didn't directly answer. They said, Pete's been a key member of the team since day one, been critical as we shepherd the president's agenda across the finish line. Overjoyed for him and Chastain, and we believe every American should have access to paid family leave. Yeah, so, okay, two months in the middle of all this? Southwest, United Airlines, we've got supply chain problems all over the world. Okay, I'm all right. Well, I don't know. We have Senator Tom Cotton who jumps in on this and says, not good. He's completely unqualified to serve as Secretary of Transportation, but Biden still picked him. Now he's absent during a transportation crisis that is hurting working class Americans. And Pete Buttigieg is hitting the circuits. He's back. He's hitting the media. So you're going to see a lot more of him. We're going to see if this solves anything at all or if Christmas is over. Let's see what you have to say about this. Have you canceled your plans for Christmas? Let's check in over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's see what you've got over there. And a couple super chats came in, saw those too. Former LEO says, did you see the article I clipped for you about California doing its part to screw up the supply chain? I probably did, so I can't pin it right now. Oh no, I didn't see this one. I'll have to take a look at that. Thanks, former LEO. Yeah, there's a lot of questions about that. You know, California's passing new laws and things like that are concerning. Geomancy Game says, as someone who doesn't have a lot of money, Christmas shouldn't be about presents. This past year, dealing with my cancer has seriously taught me to spend more time with my friends and family. I would take an evening dinner with my family over any amount of presents any day. That's a very good attitude. I think that's a nice way to think about it. You really don't need all the things, do you? Right? Buying all the things. It's just kind of a waste. Pete Buttigieg is here, says every week I'm supposed to take 4 hours and do a supply chain spot check at the ports. Of course, the 1 year I blow it off, this happens. That sounds like Creed Bratton over from The Office. Sounds very much like him. We have another one from Vientikis says, I just want to point out once again that cargo ship was decommissioned while out in the waters with its crew still aboard. On the marine traffic website, dots are stationary. Arrows are moving, pink are tankers, and green are the cargo. Hope you don't mind me plugging another channel on here, but the Money GPS is a great financial aggregator. A lot of great information about the financial and supply chain situations. Yeah, check. No, I don't mind that at all. And thanks for correcting me, because it is complicated stuff. The Money GPS is a good link. That's over from Vientikis Prime. Let's see who else we have here. We've got Hunter Biden's here. He said, is the shipping for what I need also disrupted? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, literally shaking. Hunter Biden is here. He's in trouble. Perry Masonary says, why doesn't Joe have Hunter hire some truckers to move his crack? Three Girlie says, what? Christmas canceled? Sounds like a first world problem. Other countries are not looking for Christmas. They're looking for their daily food. Sounds like a whole lot of spoiled brats crying over their toys not being there on their special day. When did America get so weak that they can't handle Christmas being postponed? That's from Three Girlies. Woo. Yeah, that's That's a hard line there, three girlies. I like it. I like it a lot. Harden up. News Now Wyoming is here, says, I am still confused on how everyone is still hurting for employees. How are people surviving? It made sense when we were still handing out billions and billions of dollars, why people sat on their butts for over a year. However, those handouts have ended. They ended here in Wyoming in June, yet every place in the area is short-staffed still. I really don't see how. However, free handouts for over a year to not work, nobody could see how that could backfire. Yeah, that's from News Now Wyoming. I don't really understand it either. I think that maybe they're on savings. Maybe they're still getting local, state, unemployed. I don't know. We have Vantica says, on my last comment, the pink are the pleasure craft. The red are the tankers, which I think he's joking about that. We have a Twitch follower, shout out over on Twitch. We've got another one from Speech Unleashed, says, there aren't enough workers because of the vaccine mandates, because people can just make as much money by staying home and collecting unemployment and other government aid. Statistics show that people are saving a lot of money now, which means they don't need additional government money or aid. Also, the Dems are looking to allow illegals to do these jobs, so that just further moves along their agenda. From Speech Unleashed, I think there's a lot of good points there. Let's see. We've got another one from Todd Trout. Says, Rob, I represent a logistics company that operates out of the West Coast ports. These politicians are just here for the photo ops. They're not going to solve problems by opening the ports 24 hours. If you cannot get labor, chassis, or get the port to be more efficient, then opening 24 hours solves nothing. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's like, go to a restaurant that's open 24 hours but doesn't have any employees. It's not going to be a good experience, is it? Yeah, it's open. Yeah, it's come on in. Nobody's going to cook you anything, and there's nobody to bring it to you. But yeah, have a seat. Somebody will be with you shortly, right? It sounds great, and I agree with you generally. Politicians don't solve almost anything. Former LEO says, in addition to no Christmas, look what else is going on. Halloween was canceled by Seattle schools because certain people don't participate. Well, that's sad for all the kids. That sounds terrible. Vientica says, if you live near any farmland, look into forming REKO rings and farm shares. James Corbett at Corbett Report did a great video people should check out. Basically, these are small interactions between farmers and consumers where people are just making direct deals for stuff. Yeah, so I like a lot of those concepts. I think that there's going to be a lot of value in all of that in the near future. Thank you, Vianticus. Another one from former LEO says, the Green New Deal is what's screwing up Christmas, at least in California. I think a lot of things are screwing stuff up in California. News Now Wyoming says, so we can order it on time to come in before Christmas. What are we buying for your brother? For my brother? Joey? Joey likes McDonald's French fries, and he can't have any of those. He can, but not as many as he would prefer. So, it's complicated there, Vienticus. Nice gesture, though. I appreciate it. I'm Not Gas says, seriously, did the DNC pick a guy named Buttigieg just to bait people into making jokes so that they could call them a homophobe? I mean, if they did, it's very diabolical. It's a good strategy. I wouldn't put it past them. Leafy Bug is here, says, hi, Rob. Hi, Leafy. Good to see you. Isn't it great how the government can solve problems by setting up a task force? I know, it's like magic. Just put together a group of bureaucrats, tell them they're going to do something, and ta-da, what supply chain disruptions? I can't see the bottlenecks anymore. They all just disappear. Thanks for all you do to help us out, Whispering Joe. P.S. Pete Buttigieg is definitely smarter than you, Rob. Well, that's for sure. He went to Oxford and Harvard. Yeah. Yeah, and he's the transportation secretary, and he gets 2 months of paternity leave. I don't get 2 months of paternity leave. Clearly smarter than I am, and I'm looking forward to having all my Christmas presents on time delivered. Thanks, Pete. We have another one from Leafy Bug. Maternity leave, paternity leave, whatever they're on. Yeah, I'm funnier than Holiday Pete, but definitely not as smart. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, my statements are made out of ignorance and bigotry. So got that. Oh, Jake's here. He's from Oxford too. It's Friday. Everybody's coming out from Oxford. Rob, breaking news. Me and Pete are not really on maternity leave. We're in hiding. We saw an anomaly on radar, ordered a drone strike. Turns out it was a reindeer leading a sleigh. Please don't tell the kids. Oops. It's Jake from Oxford. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, yeah, over on Rumble, Seek says, I don't mind that Buttigieg is taking time off, but someone should take his place and do his job while he's out. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. You can't, if you're sort of the CEO of a company, you don't just get to go somewhere. The Department of Transportation, how many tens of thousands of employees do they have? I know the administration is okay just like taking weeks off and not saying anything for days at a time. Joe Biden, I don't think, has answered questions for the press in like, how long has it been? A long time. But it's not ideal when you have a meltdown happening across the country. Pete Buttigieg says, come on, Rob. Have you ever given birth to a kid? I have. The labor is hard. Oh, this segment I should have known. Nadarb says, Kamala has been really busy making propaganda with child actors, okay? She doesn't have time for things like supply chains and logistics. Kids need to know they will see the moon craters with their own eyes, Roberto. Oh, okay. We got a couple more questions on this one. This is just amazing. Santa says, after Southwest fired me for not being vaccinated, I got locked out of entering the North Pole because Southwest also vaccinated my reindeers. What is happening? They just banned me from visiting unvaccinated children. I'm sorry, kids. Christmas is canceled. I won't be able to be visiting you this year. My wife now wants a divorce, Miss Claus, because she got vaccinated. Santa is not in a good place right now, kids. Oh, Santa. What have you done to Santa? Miss Claus is going to be divorcing Santa. You know, he's becoming a super spreader now. He visited a bunch of unvaccinated children. Reindeers are having breakthrough infections. Southwest says you can't deliver presents anymore on our airlines. He's having a bad pandemic, isn't he? Oh, poor guy. Well, extra milk and cookies for Santa when it's time. Hopefully he can make it if he can find a flight. D-Rod says Governor DeSantis invites the cargo ship to come to Florida. Shortly thereafter, Biden came out and said ports open 24/7 and everything is fine. Sure it is. It's like, you know, they're going to try to paper over this thing, but everybody can see. You just go to the store and you just see, oh, well, that's double in price. That's terrible. Peely Wally's here says, in the UK, they blame shortages of fuel, food, and other things on Brexit, mainly because it was the everyday thing that people voted for, which displeased the Londoners and political people in the media. They love to blame the problem on the Brexiteers. I guess it's got nothing to do with the rules, the regulations put in place during COVID. The fact that people walked away from jobs altogether and decided to take other routes in life instead of driving delivery trucks. It's easier to blame others than accept the government made mistakes and is the sole to blame for the chaos. Yeah, it's sort of the putting good money after bad, right? It's a sunk cost fallacy. We've already sunk our time into this. We've already stood behind this. We've gone on social media and blasted it all over the place. Put your masks on for 18 months. So if they come back and say, oh, maybe that wasn't the great way to handle all this, well, then they've got to eat their own crow, don't they? And they don't want to do that. I think your point is well taken, Peely Wally. Pete Buttigieg says, I wish... All right, talking about muscular sailors. Christiana says, the cost of gas seems to be the direct cause for increasing cost of goods, yes or no? I think that it certainly contributes to that, right? Because gasoline is used to transport the goods. So if you are somebody who is assembling widgets for resale to the public and you've got to pay for all of the different components of the widget to be transported to you, and gasoline costs twice as much to bring all the different components into your shop where you assemble them, then your costs are necessarily going to go up, and you're going to pass that along to your consumer. So that's one form of one variable of the increased cost. The other are just the regular supply and demand economics that you're going to see in a complex global system where nobody wants to work for some reason. Yeah, it's a good question. The last villain says Christmas is for white supremacists. This is the new normal. Yeah, that's probably true. I think everything's for white supremacists these days. News Now Wyoming says, honestly, if Americans want to sit on their butts, I've got no problem with a company hiring illegal citizens, as long as Americans can't get the job when they decide to finally get off their butts, put them out on the streets. Well, I don't want anybody out in the streets, but I am wondering why people are not working. Like, do they think that this is how just life is going to be? I mean, it's weird. Monster One says, funny, the National Guard can drive school buses, but they can't drive transportation trucks. Very interesting. Yeah, what's going on there? Look2G says, I hope this issue doesn't create another disaster. Sometimes it seems like this administration's policies don't work, probably why some of us tried to vote them out. We had an anchor-related oil leak, and now I've heard they are worried about our optical cables being severed for the same reason. Yeah, you know, I've had some interesting conspiracy theories about that whole thing. There, you know, you hear them. Let's put on the foil hat for a minute. Have you been hearing a lot more stories of internet problems? We're going to lose, like Look2G said, right? Optical cables being severed in the oceans, or a big electronic storm in the form of solar bursts happening that are going to spread electromagnetic waves that might take out all your electronics, stuff like that. Are they going to shut the internet down on us at some point? Probably. That was from Tinfoil Hat off. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Mustang Jeff says, canceled Christmas just furthers their agenda. That's from Mustang Jeff. We have some more from Vienticus says, just a general piece of advice. Buy stuff in bulk whenever you can. Make sure you cycle your supply so you're always using the oldest stuff first. Sure, you might live in a couple boxes at your place or have a couple boxes, but you're going to save a lot of money in the long run. Good advice from Vienticus. We have another one from Three Girlies says, Buttigieg did not birth those two babies. Okay, 2 months of paternity leave, especially paid, is ridiculous, especially when they talk about fairness and equity. Maternity leave, generally 6 weeks unpaid for people in the poverty level, to include minorities. Maternity leave is so the mom can recover from ejecting a child out of her body. Paternity leave is important for a father to get to know the child. The paternity leave is not guaranteed to lower income people. On top of that, paternity leave is most likely not going to be paid leave. 2 months of paid paternity leave is a luxury of the elite who are even looking out for truckers and laborers who are moving the products, who aren't even looking out for those people who are moving the products in those ports, which is the comment of the week there from Three Girlies. Outstanding comment. And that was something that I was thinking, right? When a female, a biological woman, has a child, that is a very traumatic thing that happens. Okay, I've never experienced it myself. Don't intend to, even though it is 2021. But the whole point here, it's a it's a big thing that happens. Woman carries the child for 9 months, births it out. A lot of consequences happen to that person's body. So they need actual physical time to heal, which didn't happen here, as far as I know. It's a great comment. I think you're exactly right. It's massive privilege. And hats off for typing that up. Beautifully done. Ty Livin says, Christmas has become much too commercial. Maybe this will be the year that we have the great mind reset. Congratulations to Pete Buttigieg. That's from Ty Livin. It's a nice comment. Yeah, congratulations to him. I agree. I think that Christmas is way too commercial. I really am tired of stuff in general at this point in my life. Had enough of it. Don't even enjoy it anymore. But I get it, like for kids and stuff, right? You want to make sure that your 6-year-old can have a nice Christmas with some beautiful new toys and have fun and go hog wild. It's not about us. It's about the kids. And, how do you teach a kid? Hey, Johnny, I got you a meditation session. Let's sit down here together and meditate. For a 6-year-old? No, man. They want that Spider-Man that shoots stuff out of his, wazoo. We have Be Brave says, Booty wasn't even employed long enough to get paternity leave. And who the hell gets paid maternity leave? Makes me mad. That's from Be Brave. Let's see who else is here. We have another one from Vientica says, it serves Santa right for giving me coal that 1 year. Now Big Daddy government can handle the presents. We have Three Girlies says, another issue. California decided to require that independent contractors like truck drivers would have to become employees. That is also playing into the huge mess at the ports. California regulations and policies are a huge reason for this backlog, and it's only exacerbated by Biden and his regulation and his policies. Yeah, I think that you're on fire today, Three Girlies. Loving it. We have Pete Buttigieg says we've been very patient, but our patience is running out. Go away, supply chain problems. Sounds like Kamala Harris. Maybe he should just say, unload faster. She went down to Mexico and said, don't come to Guatemala. Maybe he should just say, unload faster, and they'll just follow his command. Let's see what else we've got. A few more. Vientica says, Well, one thing about the supplies and the jobs and all the stuff that people don't consider is the production per worker ratio. It's a number that keeps going up. Eventually, you have to ask the question, what do you do with the people that can't be productive? This is part of what the New Deal was about. Sparks an entire other conversation for another time, but I at least want to put that question into people's ears to think about. Yeah, the idea that maybe you have a lot of people in the workforce that aren't particularly useful. Sweet Potato says, they would try to cancel Jesus's birthday. Psh, they also need electricity to use the 5G frequencies on us, Rob. Debunked, LOL. Thank you. Thanks for debunking me. Sweet Potato, good to see you. Glad you were able to make it by. Thunder7 says, remember the NWO want you to own nothing and eat weeds, no meat. Having no supply chain means the shelves will be bare. If you haven't stored food, you're going to be eating the weeds. Round one to the Nazi Klaus Schwab, who doesn't want the deplorables to have any fun or any rights. I think that's the guy from the World Economic Forum, right? K-Cell says, there sure are a lot of dummies in California, which is accurate. Very true. Great questions from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's see. A couple super chats came in over on YouTube. Copper Lobo says, it's your show, but does that mean no more super chats? I think it does, actually. Yeah, if we start premiering this, then I don't think you can do super chats on the premiere, which is a little bit of a loss, but it's an experiment. I need to see what it does to some of the numbers. And so, yeah, it kind of stinks, doesn't it? But you can come over to Locals and support us over there. Lean says, Rob, a man of your word. You made my day. Wish you an awesome Black Friday. Happy to black it up this Friday, Lean. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're enjoying the show and supporting us here the way that you do. Lovely Lady says, I used my 2-week vacation for my maternity leave, and that part of that was in the hospital in recovery. Thanks, Pete, for showing such a great precedent. Yeah, well, I don't know what it's like to adopt a kid. They might have all sorts of recovery time they need, Jupa says, this guy gets 60 days and counting. Meanwhile, I have to share 12 weeks with my wife because we happen to work for the same employer. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to look at this and see just massive double standards. They get something you don't. And that, I think, is very indicative of just how the government works in general. Let's see. Joe Biden says, on that smell, the smell of children surrounds me. Joe Biden. The worst. Okay. Great questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thank you for all of your support. All right, we're going to move on into our next segment and see what else we're getting into. Oh, that's right. Oh, Zulu says we absolutely can do super chats during a premiere if the chat is on. Oh, well, that's nice. Well, that's pretty cool. So that's good. And I'll come by and hang out in the chat from time to time, no question about it. But it's just a change. We're just going to try it, see what it does. If it doesn't do anything, we'll change it back. But it is a little depressing, isn't it? All right, next segment, let's get into it. We've got a Capitol Police... Oh, I got to start that again because the super chat just came up. Thanks, Zulu. A Capitol Police officer was indicted and arrested on obstruction charges relating to the January 6 riots. Very interesting case. We've heard a lot of different individuals arrested, charged, indicted, talked a lot about the different cases, poked a lot of fun at the FBI playing their Where's Waldo game, circling all of the faces in the red circles on all the different photographs. But this is a little bit different. This is a police officer that was arrested for obstructing an investigation that was being conducted by the FBI. A Capitol Hill police officer. Let's jump off with the headline here before we dive into the actual indictment that was filed out of the D.C. courts. Here, CNBC tells us the officer's name is Michael Riley. He's charged with cover-up of another person's role in the January 6th riot. And you'll notice as we go through this, we really don't know who this other person is, do we? Let's dig in. It says an officer, a U.S. Capitol Police officer, was arrested on Friday for obstruction of justice related to communications with another man later criminally charged for participation. The cop, Michael Riley, allegedly deleted Facebook messages to and from that person after the other person was arrested on January 19th. So he'd already been arrested. Previously, he had urged the man to delete information from that own man's Facebook page, which showed him inside the Capitol during the invasion. We're going to read through this entirely. We'll take a look. It says, the deletions occurred after the other man told Riley they took my phone and downloaded everything. FBI was, quote, very curious about the duo's communication. Riley was with the Capitol Police for 25 years, appeared later on Friday at the U.S. District Court in Washington, charged with 2 counts of obstruction, maximum sentence possible, 20 years in prison if he does, in fact, get convicted. And so, very interesting little turn of events here. Who is this guy? This is what he looks like. Capitol Police officer, poses for a picture outside the headquarters, was the Officer of the Month in February 2011, according to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Funds. And so, he's already lawyered up. He's going to be getting probably a little bit better treatment than some of the other Capitol Hill prisoners who were still in there. Seth MacFarlane over on on Twitter reported that a high-profile D.C. attorney, guy by the name of David Benowitz, is going to serve as Riley's defense attorney, handling a number of other cases involving January 6 defendants, and the feds are not going to seek to hold him in pre-trial detention. So he's going to get bond. A lot of other people never got bond, but he got bond. Prosecutors want the court to order him to make regular check-ins, prohibit international travel, and retain no firearms. And so since this all happened like today, we're still waiting to hear from the Capitol Police. Don't know if he's already been booted out of there, resigned, or done anything like that. But he did get indicted. This was late yesterday. Let's take a look at the indictment. You can see that this is the United States of America versus Michael Angelo Riley. 2 counts of obstruction over in Title 18 of the U.S. Code. The indictment went over to a grand jury, and it's not super long, so we can actually get through it relatively quickly. Looks like the grand jury heard some of the evidence sworn in on August 11th. This was filed October 14th out of the district court out of D.C. All right, so let's get into it. It says, on January 6th, yes, the end of America almost happened. Got that. Immediately following these events, Capitol Police launched a criminal investigation. Michael Angelo Riley, at the time, was a sworn U.S. Capitol Police officer for more than 25 years. On January 6th, he was at work in his capacity as a canine unit on that very day. He was not on duty inside the Capitol during the attack, but he was aware, according to the radio reports, of the violence and the strife that afternoon. He responded to reports of an explosive device near the Capitol complex. So he wasn't inside the building, not on duty inside there, but he heard a lot about it, and then went over there after the fact, responded to reports of an explosive device. Then we get, under paragraph 4, person number 1 illegally entered the U.S. Capitol. So they don't tell us who this person is, right? Person number 1. Another person who was charged with a crime, arrested, and obviously talked to the feds about something. Let's see what else happened. Riley and person number 1's communication. So we've got this. On January 1, 2021, which was before January 6, person 1 accepted Riley's Facebook friend request. They did not know each other. Both were avid fishermen, members of fishing Facebook groups. But then on January 7th, through a Facebook direct message, Riley initiated contact with person 1, who posted selfie-style photographs and other commentary on Facebook, admitting his presence and conduct inside the Capitol. They never contacted or communicated before. So we see what happens here. January 1, friend request. Riley, the police officer, says, that guy looks interesting. Friend request. Oh, he's a fisherman. I love fishing. This is great. January 6th comes and goes. January 7th comes by. Person 1 was at the January 6th rally, hops on Facebook, and starts, posting photographs, selfie-style pictures, all this stuff. Riley, the police officer, Capitol Hill police officer, is like, yo, homie, not a good idea. Sends a message over to him, says, hey, person 1, I'm a Capitol Police officer. I agree with your political stance. Take down the part about being in the building. They are currently investigating, and everyone who was in the building is going to be charged. Just looking out. So, that's a nice message. Just looking out for somebody. Riley and person number 1 exchanged dozens more Facebook direct messages, including the following. Person 1 shared 3 videos with Riley showing person 1 outside and inside the Capitol. Riley responded in part saying, I get it. It was a total S show. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I'm glad you got out of there unscathed. We had over 50 officers hurt, some pretty bad. Person 1 stated he did not think he had done anything wrong. Riley responded, said, the only thing I can see is if you went in the building and they have proof, you will be charged. You could always articulate that you had nowhere to go, but that's for court. Riley then further advised person 1, says, don't sweat it. They might choose to only charge certain people and not everyone. Personally, I don't know what they've decided. I just know our guys in the FBI are going through everything. That's on January 7th. So he obviously didn't know at that time that it was going to be a Where's Waldo bonanza. I mean, we're going to spend, he should have said, oh, for the next like 10 months, the FBI on Twitter every day is going to be like, have you seen this person? Have you seen this grandma? Have you seen this grandpa? We're looking for these people. Where are they? So every single day. So he's like, no, just don't worry about it. Not good advice. On January 8th, they continued to talk, exchange Facebook messages, including about the death of a U.S. Capitol Police officer. On January 9th, then, Person 2 comes into the game, messages Riley about Person 1. Person 2 sent Riley a video of Person 1's Facebook live stream, showed Person 1 smoking an unknown substance inside the Capitol building. Person 2 also sent Riley a screenshot of the video, capturing Person 1 inhaling a hand-rolled cigarette. Riley responded to Person 2 saying, yep, I know. Uh-oh. On January 12th, then, Riley and Person 1, they communicate through Facebook about their phishing interests. Then on January 13th, Person 1 tells police officer that Person 1 was being discussed on social media. Cop says, get off social media, right? Which is always good advice. On January 16th, Person 1 says the following. The unidentified Person 1 sends Riley a Facebook message linking to a news article, calling it fake news. Riley responded saying, yep, they're arresting dozens of people every day. Person 1 says, call me. I'm sorry. So you can see a lot of messages going back and forth. Person 1 says, okay, now I'm confused. Call me. Right? So Riley says, call him. Person 1 calls Riley immediately. They speak for 23 minutes. So now this guy's acting as sort of a pseudo lawyer to the guy, right? They're having conversations. We see January 16th comes around. FBI's in hyperdrive. People are getting arrested all over the place. And this guy starts freaking out. He's got a fisherman buddy in the Facebook group, calls him, are they going to arrest me? No, I don't think I did anything wrong. What should I do? I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out, man. So cop says, all right, give me a call. Calls him. They talk through it for 23 minutes. Within hours of the conversation, Person 1 sent text messages to 2 other individuals saying he spoke to Capitol Police. Said the charges are likely going to involve only trespassing. Uh-oh. Riley then... Person 1 sent some messages. Riley responded, next time you want to come to DC, call me. We can go to the shore for free. Next time you come in, we can see the Capitol building. Do it legally next time. I know a guy who can get you a tour. It's behind you now. Lesson learned. Just ask your attorney what's next. Okay. On January 19th, then, Person 1 arrested by the FBI. Unlawful entry into the Capitol building. They continue to communicate until January 20th. On that date... he's already been arrested. Person 1 sent Riley a Facebook message regarding having turned himself into the FBI. He told Riley, the FBI was very curious. I'd been speaking to you. If they haven't already asked you about me, they're gonna. They took my phone and downloaded everything. Riley responded, that's fine. Uh-oh. It's not fine, Riley. On January 20th, Riley deleted all of his Facebook direct messages to and from person number 1. Then on January 21st, 12 days after he received and acknowledged the video of Person 1 inside the Capitol, Riley sent a Facebook message stating, Hey, Person number 1, another mutual friend was talking about you last night. I tried to defend you, but then he showed me a video of you in the Capitol smoking weed and acting like a moron. I have to say, I was shocked. I was dumbfounded. Since your story of getting pushed into the building with no other choice now not only seems false, but a complete lie. I feel like a moron for believing you. I was so mad last night, I deleted all your posts, but I wanted to text you this morning and let you know that I will no longer be conversing with you. Uh-oh. After this message, Riley ceased all communications with Person 1. So on January 21st, he sends that message after he already knew that the FBI had came and gotten all of his phone calls. Uh-oh. Doesn't it sound like he's trying to make up a story after the fact? Yeah. He knew that the FBI had the phone and they're waiting there for another message. So Popo sends over there and says, oh gosh, I feel like a moron. I'm so bad. I'm going to stop talking with you. He knew he was sending that to the FBI. 100%. He knew. He knew what he was doing. He was concocting a little backstory on the back end. and then justifying why he had to delete all of his messages. He says, "Oh, FBI's got all my messages? Oh, that's fine." Goes, "Oh, shoot," deletes everything, erasing everything, wakes up, goes, "I think I just erased evidence. I just obstructed evidence." So then he comes up with the story. "I believed you. I feel wrong. Not going to talk anymore." Sends that to the FBI. We'll see if they buy it. Did they buy it? No, they didn't. They indicted him. That's why we're here. They said here on January 7th and elsewhere, one count of obstruction. He did knowingly, corruptly persuade, attempt to do so, cause and induce any person to destroy, alter, mutilate, conceal any evidence. He directed person one to take down from Facebook records his social media posts. And then count two, he wanted to destroy and impair the integrity and the availability of his direct Facebook communications with person number one. Well, guess what? They got them anyway, didn't they? That comes over from Channing Phillips, the acting attorney for the District of Columbia, U.S. Attorney's Office. What do you have to say about that? Bad popo? Good popo? Let's see what you have to say over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's see who we have here. A couple on this topic. We've got Justin Trudeau says you're going. Oh, gosh, I can't read that. Justin Trudeau. Ridiculous. Robute says, "Hey, Rob, please have a Streamlabs donation or a Streamlabs Element donations. Want to support you, but don't want to give YouTube any money. Screw them." That's from Robute. Yeah, we can look at that. Like I've always said, I think, Locals is the home base. That's kind of the best place to support us. But yeah, I can integrate that, especially if we're not going to be directly live on YouTube next week. We'll see how it goes. It's a good idea, Robute. I appreciate you suggesting that and thinking about how you can support us. That's amazing. Three Girlie says, "So does this make him a good popo or a bad popo?" I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I don't know. What do you think? Should he be charged with obstruction for that? I don't know. It's complicated. I don't endorse criminality, but I also don't endorse stupid arrests and prosecutions. So I'm kind of torn on this one, but I'm not particularly mad at the guy. We have News Now Wyoming says, "I don't understand these charges. I made a video about how stupid people were to have posted that they were in the Capitol. I recommended all of them delete their social media posts because they're making jobs of prosecuting them easier. I did that on January 6th. Did I commit obstruction? It was common sense advice. It wasn't a secret that the feds were using social media to track down these violent terrorist offenders. It should be common sense to not post your criminal activities." Yeah, but he's sort of part of the the team that's responsible for identifying the perpetrators who committed the worst attack on America since, Genghis Khan existed. Yeah, I mean, it really goes back a long way. Really bad. So, yeah, he's sort of part of the investigatory team. So what he was doing was violating, several of his oaths to them, but also he knew at that moment that there was actually a crime that was committed and he was telling somebody to conceal the evidence. So that's why they dumped all over it. Let's see what else. Let's Go Brandon says, what's with the people being stupid around communications? Really? Facebook Messenger? It's a Fed honeypot. Use Signal, idiots. Or Telegram, yeah. Both, end-to-end encryption. Yeah, Ty Livin says, "Come on, Riley. Don't you know not to accept a friend request from an undercover FBI agent?" Yeah. It's like Police Academy 101. What are you doing out there? I think half of Facebook is the FBI. It's just bots and FBI agents. They take break. They do Where's Waldo first and then go over to Facebook. And they try to troll Ben Shapiro listeners. Perry Masonary says, "Prosecute Ashley Babbitt's shooter just like Chauvin. Unarmed civilian. Shot to death." Nothing's going to happen there. They papered over that one real quickly, didn't they? Another one here from Thunder7 says, "I don't understand what his crime is. All he did was tell the protester to remove his videos and messages from Facebook. Protester had already been arrested for trespassing, smoking weed, unless that's illegal in Washington. We all know the cop's real crime was being a MAGA supporter. You have to be a part of the Marxist Dems now or you are a domestic terrorist, white Nazi supremacist. I am so sick of the witch hunt of these protesters, while the real domestic terrorists like Antifa, BLM burned and rioted and they killed, they were all applauded by the DNC." We have another one, a couple more here from Greg Marat says, "The irony of this, While is this on the Rogan? We'll save that for the next segment, Greg. Good. We're going to get right there soon. The Riley guy, Leafy Bug says, this Riley guy is definitely not smarter than Holiday, Daddy Pete, or Jake Sullivan. He should have gone to Oxford. Yeah, I mean, not everybody can go to Oxford. It's where some of us are just so dumb. We're just born that way. We can't help it. Great questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Couple here from YouTube says, this is from Tara Rayner, says, he gave advice. This is ridiculous. He clearly knew they had his DMs. Erasing his own means nothing. He said he aligned politically. That's his real crime. Yeah, you can't do that. Oh, no. Not in this administration. No, you got to toe the line. Otherwise, your butt is out of there. We're going to see what they do to the Navy corpsmen here soon enough. We've got Chronicles de Coquette says, I'm from South Bend. During the campaign, he was rarely in the city. Yeah, he doesn't seem like he's qualified for much. But, that's why he's there. And Zulu says we absolutely can do super chats doing a premiere if the chat is on, which it will be. Thank you, Zulu, for educating us on how this all works. Still figuring it all out. Those were great questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's see. Did anything else come in here? Monster One says, if they are holding the name, that means confidential informant. Yeah, I didn't say it, but yeah, maybe. All right, let's jump into those questions. All came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thank you for your support over there, and to my friends over there on YouTube, on Rumble, over on Twitch, and of course in the locals chat. Shout outs to everybody over there. Okay, we got one more segment left. Let's see what else we're getting into. Oh yeah, Joe Rogan and the horse dewormer hoax. If you've been with our channel for some time, you know that I defended Joe Rogan when CNN and a lot of the other charlatans in the media were out there claiming that he took horse dewormer. It was kind of a dumb hoax that was being spread all over the place. I defended him, made a video about it, and guess what? Got a strike on this channel. YouTube said that was medical misinformation, when the entire point of my video was that CNN was communicating the medical information by saying that Joe Rogan took something that he clearly didn't. If you missed a lot of that, if you missed what CNN was in fact saying, here's a supercut, quick refresher on what was going down.
They must know that that's a lie.
You have individuals like Joe Rogan, for example, who don't want to take an experimental vaccine but will take horse dewormer.
Well. If it isn't old horseworm Rogan.
Ivermectin is often used to deworm livestock.
Ivermectin apparently given to deworm animals.
Yeah, it was a hoax. The whole thing was a scam. They knew it. They were doing it to rub his nose in it. They thought that they were having fun. It was all the elite, sophisticated media intellectuals out there who are competition to Joe Rogan. He's sucking their audiences away from them, which is why they can't stand the guy, because he's got more political influence, more political power than they do, and they are mad about it. So they got on camera and they were just, having, it's the horse dewormer, isn't it? That stupid troglodyte, that knuckle dragging moron over there is taking horse paste in order to deal with his pandemic stuff. And so we called it out rightfully. We went through the CDC's website. We said, oh no, look, it's right on here. They give it to refugees all the time. And so it turned into this big thing. YouTube was unhappy about that. And so they gave me a strike on the channel, got this email that said, hey, Rob, you've done a no-no. You violated our medical misinformation policy by just even talking about it. They gave us a strike. They said you're banned from 1 week. And so I put it on Twitter and I complained about it. Then YouTube responded and said, we checked. This was a mistake during the review process. Video has now been reinstated. We're sorry this happened, which is nice and fine and well and good. But the point is, it's very difficult to talk about these things, to have open debates about what's even happening, because everywhere you turn, somebody wants to throw you off of the platform that you're on. So anyways, we're back in business now. We're going to talk through this story. Quick reminder that when we're talking about any of these things, the guidance is always to go to the CDC, talk to your doctor, follow the official medical advice, the official guidance, but we're not talking about vaccines or coronavirus or any of that stuff. Really, we're talking about decision makings and sort of risk analysis. And this is a conversation between two people who are discussing those issues. And so it's very, I think, appropriate to dive into this. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who is this guy? The chief correspondent from CNN, does all of their medical reporting. He's a neurosurgeon. We're going to take a look at his record. But he posted this on Twitter yesterday, right after he finished his review, his podcast with Joe Rogan. He says this: I walked into the lion's den. I spoke with Joe Rogan on his podcast for more than 3 hours. Vaccines, ivermectin, and much more. Friends tried to get me to turn down his invite, but ultimately, I'm glad I did it. So Dr. Sanjay Gupta, somebody who is, at the forefront of, medical innovation, somebody who's just traveled the world and saved lives. This was a pretty traumatic experience for him to have to go in and have a 3-hour podcast with Joe Rogan. One of the most casual conversations, casual podcasts that exists. They get into some heated issues, no doubt about it, but it's where you can be authentic. It's where you can be open. It's where you can just sort of let your hair down, as they say, right? You just kind of get comfortable and talk. But this was very difficult for him. I don't know if he went to Oxford. He might have. Let's take a look. Who is this guy? So he was very scared to go in there, the lion's den, as he called it. But he's got a lot of background. Over on CNN's health website, his bio, he's won multiple Emmys. He's the chief medical correspondent for CNN. I don't even know what an Emmy is, whatever that means. So great. He's covered some of the most important health stories in the United States around the world. Let's see. Wrote an op-ed about the pandemic. A few months before joining CNN, he was following the terror attacks, talked about the devil documents. He got a CNN award, so that's nice. During the rollout of healthcare, he talked to Health and Human Services, Kathleen Sebelius, about the botched website. All right. U.S. Army 82nd Airborne. So he flew into Pakistan, live coverage of the unprecedented flooding. Don't know what a doctor's doing there for that, but okay. New Guinea Ebola outbreak reported from medical infrastructure problems in Puerto Rico. So he's basically a medical correspondent. He's let's see, associate professor of neurosurgery. So there's some actual medical background. And let's see, sexiest man alive, according to People. This guy, sexiest man alive. Let's see, HBO documentary, New York Times best-selling books, Chasing Life, Cheating Death, and Monday Mornings, Keep Sharp, wrote a bunch of books. Undergrad. Okay. So yeah, now you can see why he was so scared, because he's really just been a reporter for his entire life, neurosurgeon, practicing, whatever. All right. So very petrified to talk to Joe Rogan. Wrote this article today. He is the chief medical correspondent. And he says, in today's highly segmented world, most people who watch and listen to me every day on CNN have already received and accepted the message of the utility of the vaccines, the importance of the mask, and how we can all work together to end this pandemic. Yeah, all of the little automatons who watch you and everybody else over there. So I realized that if I was serious about trying to communicate public health, I needed to go with a less comfortable place. I needed to go into the lion's den and accept an invitation to sit down with Rogan for more than 3 hours. Many friends caution me against accepting this invitation. Says there is little room for reasonable conversations anymore. Joe is a brawler. He doesn't play fair, somebody else warned. In fact, when I told Joe early in the podcast that I didn't agree with his apparent views on the vaccines, part of me thought that the MMA former Taekwondo champion might hurtle himself across the table and throttle my neck. But instead he smiled and off we went. So this guy is like one of the biggest weenies I've ever heard of. What is he talking about? Joe Rogan's going to jump across the table? Well, maybe. He was pretty upset about it. He heard the hoax from CNN. He has the chief medical correspondent from CNN, the person who you would think would be vetting all of the medical information that is being proffered on the air. You'd think that maybe he would have vetted the litany of the horse dewormer nonsense that came out, but he didn't vet any of it. And Joe Rogan was unhappy about it, and he asked about it, and he didn't let the good doctor squirrel his way out of it. 2-minute clip here. We're going to watch every single second of it because it is good. Here is Joe Rogan blasting Gupta.
By the way, I'm glad you're better. I'm glad it only lasted a day.
You're probably the only one at CNN that's glad.
No. We're not.
The rest of them are all lying about me taking horse medication. And we should talk about that.
That bothered you.
It should bother you, too. They're lying at your network about people taking human drugs versus drugs for veterinary.
Calling it a horse dewormer is not a flattering thing. I get that.
It's a lie. It's a lie on a news network, and it's a lie that's a willing that's a lie that they're conscious of. It's not a mistake.
Yeah.
They're unfavorably framing it as veterinary medicine.
Well, the FDA put this thing out. You saw that. Did you see that thing that the FDA put out?
What did the FDA put out?
It was a tweet, and it was snarky. I admit it. They said, "You are not a horse. You are not a cow. Stop taking this stuff," or something like that.
Why would you say that when you're talking about a drug that's been given out to billions and billions of people, a drug that was responsible for one of the inventors of it making the
Nobel Prize.
The Nobel Prize in 2015?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
a drug that has been shown to stop viral replication in vitro. You know that, right? Why would they lie and say that's horse dewormer? I can afford people medicine, motherfucker. This is ridiculous. It's just a lie.
I don't think anyone is.
But don't you think that a lie like that is dangerous on a news network when you know that they know they're lying?
All right, hang on. The thing is, we're like going so fast. Like I feel like I'm missing.
Do you think that's a problem, that your news network lies?
Well, I don't.
Dude.
What did they say?
They lied and said
say?
I was taking horse dewormer. First of all, it was prescribed to me by a doctor.
Yeah.
Along
they
with
shouldn't have said it was
a bunch of other medications.
If you got a human pill, because there were people that were taking the veterinary medication, and you're not, obviously. You got it from a doctor, so that it shouldn't be called that. Ivermectin can be a very effective medication for parasitic disease. And as you say, it's probably, I think, 250 million people have taken it around the world.
More,
I get that.
Way more.
So,
way more. Billions of people have taken it.
Can I just come back to the one I want to talk about? Two things
on
the ledger.
Before we get to that, does it bother you that the news network you work for out and out lied, just outright lied about me taking horse dewormer?
They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
Yes. Oh, how satisfying was that? Oh, so satisfying. Gupta is trying to squirrel his way out of that for 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Just feigns, I don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, it's kind of a scare. Well, I don't know. Well, what'd they say in this whole thing? Brother, you knew exactly what happened over there. You knew that for as smart as you are, I don't know if you went to Oxford or whatever, but you knew that this was coming up and you didn't have a good answer for it. He got ground into the dirt on that one, and it really does feel like he was trying to squirrel his way out of it. Joe Rogan just kept pinning him down. It reminds me of mixed martial arts. Anybody who's ever done mixed martial arts, it feels like when you get a person in a particular position and they're trying to squirrel their way out and you just keep the pressure on one particular part of their body, it is so uncomfortable and painful. And it feels like Joe was literally doing that to him. It was amazing. And, he was not prepared for any of this, right? He could have come in and addressed this a number of different ways and said, well, technically it is an anti-parasitic that is applicable in those things. I understand that there was a misconversation about this. He could have blamed the FDA for this, that our anchors were keying off of what the FDA said in one of their tweets and that they were promoting this as a, he could have deflected this many different ways. He could have come in and said, well, Joe, look, it's not prescribed for the coronavirus. You can't use it for that. You used it off label. It is, he could have just addressed it head on. He didn't do that at all. He squirreled away, and it was really satisfying to watch him struggle there. Now that is just somebody who was a little bit angry that they were promoting medical misinformation all over the place, saying that he did something that he never did. Here's another clip, another really good one, 2 minutes here. And again, this just shows you Dr. Gupta, he's just a talking head. He's just a media person. He just goes out there and just recites the same rote talking points that we've all heard for the last 19 months. Joe Rogan asks him a specific question, says, can we distinguish between these two logistical problems? On the one hand, you've got breakthrough cases with the vaccinated. You also have children that have low risk factors for ever catching it. He says, we're all doing various risk analyses, okay? You're doing your version of risk analysis. I'm doing my version of it. He's saying, if you compare them and they're similar risk assessments, why are you sort of puffing up one as being the acceptable method of complying in society? You sort of embrace them, but the other people you are penalizing, you're threatening them, you are treating them like they are subhumans to some degree. What's happening here if the risk assessment for both of these buckets of people is more or less the same? Breakthrough cases, children, and being unvaccinated or being, or being exposed to COVID. So he asks him this question, and Gupta can't string together an answer. Here is Joe Rogan yet again.
Don't you think that even with a breakthrough infection, untreated, you're probably more vulnerable than the average child who is not vaccinated who gets COVID? Like people have died who are double vaccinated. In fact, there was a guy who just won an Emmy who's
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, the odds of that happening to a healthy child are very, very low.
Very low.
But that guy is probably your age. How old are you?
I'm 51.
Yeah, he's about your age. Theoretically, you would be more vulnerable than a young child would be. You vaccinated would be more vulnerable of a breakthrough infection than a young child would be, statistically speaking, right? But you're not worried about
both
catching
rare.
But you're not worried about catching it. You're not worried about catching it because you've been vaccinated and you think it imparts a certain amount of protection. What I'm saying to you is I think that not worry is the same feeling that a lot of people have about their children. They're not worried about their healthy children catching it for the same reason you're not worried about catching it being vaccinated. That if treated correctly, they think that the child probably has a better chance even than you do because you're 51 years old.
I think...
I mean,
they're both...
That seems reasonable, right?
Well, I think it's... I know the story about this 53-year-old
But you see
guy.
what I'm saying? Like with your attitude that you're not worried about catching it because you've been vaccinated and you're a healthy guy. That is the exact same feeling that people have about vaccinating their children. If they have healthy children and they know that statistically speaking, there's so few children that have died from COVID.
Well, yeah, there are. It's like I think 500 or so children
out of
have died
millions and millions and millions of kids
that probably have been exposed.
Yeah,
but you know, it's again part of it is not defining this in terms of life and death. I think.
But do you understand my point?
Well, are you suggesting I get boosted?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is your attitude about not being concerned because you have antibodies and you think you would get through it even if you had a breakthrough infection. That is the exact same attitude that a lot of young people have where they don't want to get a shot because they're worried about the consequences, even though they're incredibly small.
Consequences of the vaccine.
Incredibly small. But the VAERS report, they do have deaths.
Yeah, so he goes on. The point of this is not to dig into the science or the specifics of any of that, right? But he, as a doctor, absolutely should have been prepared to rebut all of that. I mean, he could have easily just said, well, I mean, they're children now, Joe, but they're going to be adults soon, and they're going to turn into adults, and that, it's sort of it's a concern type of thing, and we have to consider the fact that children might take this home to their grandparents or whatever, right? He could have had a million different things that he could have done to push back on Joe Rogan's claim and just change the argument. I mean, what Joe Rogan was doing was just sort of going through the process of identifying how people assess risk. Under Gupta's worldview, the default is to vaccinate and it's to follow all those guidelines because he has a certain assessment of risk, what that means. Joe Rogan has a different interpretation of that. That's all that we're essentially talking about. And Gupta was not even prepared to rebut that at all, which is just kind of, amazing to me, but not really because he's on CNN. It's sort of like when Wolf Blitzer went on Jeopardy. Didn't he score like minus $18,000 or something? They don't actually know much of anything. They just read stuff off of a script and people think that is highly educated. So Gupta says, I guess a small part of me thought that I might change Joe Biden's mind about the vaccines. But after his last exchange, I realized it was probably futile. His mind was made up. There would always be plenty of misinformation out there, neatly packaged to support his convictions. Can you believe the gall of this guy? He writes in the article after he was on Joe Rogan that Joe Rogan is wrong and he's always going to be suspect. He's going to be subject to misinformation that are neatly packaged to support his convictions. It's like I want to drop an MFer on this guy right now. Did you listen to what Joe Rogan just beat you up with? He just said that your own agency was promulgating misinformation, your own network. And I just played a clip of it at the start of this segment saying horse dewormer, all across CNN, then went over to MSNBC, then back to CNN. They were milking this for everything that they could. They were literally the ones spreading the misinformation. The misinformation spreader goes on Joe Rogan's show, who calls him out on the spreading of the misinformation, and then he doesn't know how to answer it, agrees it was wrong, and then comes out here, writes an article after the fact, and says, Joe Rogan's really, just a poor victim of misinformation. These people, the audacity, it's insane. I don't know how they sleep at night. I mean, it's really embarrassing. Truth is, though, he says, I'm glad I did it. My 3-hour conversation wasn't just with Rogan. If a few of his listeners were convinced, it will still have been worth it. I don't think that this was a win for CNN in any way, shape, or form. Everybody watched this and saw some fake news phony doctor get his ass handed to him. And Joe Rogan sums it up pretty nicely right here. Says, if you're going to lie about horse dewormer, how can we trust you on anything?
Point is, you're working for a news organization. If they're lying about a comedian taking horse medication, what are they telling us about Russia? What are they telling us about Syria? Do you understand that that's why people get concerned about the veracity of the news?
Yeah, it is. It's a very valid point there, Joe. And I think that's why most people have just tuned out, right? Nobody really even watches any of these agencies anymore, any of these news agencies. It's all basically Fox News, and it's all, Joe Rogan's show. That's what people are watching now. Now, Gupta, because he likes just, I guess, to be abused, he went on Joe's show, got abused, wrote an article that is kind of like self-owning himself. Then he went on Don Lemon's show, and Don Lemon was very unhappy about this also. He's like, oh, God. He's like, you're on our team, brother. And you went on the other guy's show and you made us all look like dummies. So Don Lemon, not to be outdone, calls him back onto his show, and man, he lets him have it. It's like it's a struggle session live on TV on Don Lemon's show.
But he did say something about ivermectin that I think wasn't actually correct about CNN and lying, okay? Ivermectin is a drug that is commonly used as a horse dewormer. So it is not a lie to say that the drug is used as a horse dewormer. I think that's important, and it is not approved for COVID.
Yes.
Correct?
That's right. That's correct. It is not approved for COVID, and you're right. I mean, the FDA even put out a statement saying, basically reminding people, it was a strange sort of message from the FDA, but that said, you're not a horse, you're not a cow, stop taking this stuff, is essentially what they said, referring to ivermectin. Now, I think what Joe's point
that
is...
It has been approved for humans, but not necessarily for COVID, right? Yeah.
That's correct. It's been used for a parasitic disease, for something it's called river blindness, and it's been very effective for that. But, just because it works for one thing doesn't mean it works for something else. Right. And, there's still a few ongoing clinical trials around ivermectin. But for the most part, if you look at the data, there's no evidence that it really works here. When Joe got sick, he took ivermectin. He also took monoclonal antibodies, which is, an infusion of these antibodies. So he took both those things. It's very likely it was the monoclonal antibodies that made him feel better so quickly.
Sanjay, always a pleasure. I hope this...
These people. So he goes on Joe Rogan's show. He has to eat crow. He admits that, probably shouldn't have said that. Don Lemon comes out here and says, oh, we didn't make up anything. We were, everything was legit, and we stand by all of our reporting. It is, in fact, not approved for COVID. And Gupta just lets it all hang out there again. Man, if Joe Rogan hadn't skewered him so badly, I'd be screaming at him to do, sue those people, man. But I think he got everything he needed. I think that Gupta is going to be feeling the repercussions of that interview for a long time, CNN as well. So what good is a lawsuit going to do? They already lost the whole game. It's over for him. All right, let's see what you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We've got Greg Marat is here. First one says, irony of this is, while Sanjay was defending CNN about lying, he himself was lying. Sanjay at the start said he never saw any of the segments that CNN did on Rogan. Then later during the conversation, he said none of the segments that CNN did on Rogan were gleeful. Those are two contradictory positions, isn't it? It is. How would Sanjay know the segments were gleeful if he never saw any of them? Maybe he trusts CNN so much that he can assume that no one at CNN would ever say anything gleeful. I doubt it. Yeah, I think you're right. How could he comment on the nature of the segments that CNN was running if he didn't see them? Very astute observation there, Greg. Thanks for chiming in on that. Let's see. We have another one here from Leafy Bug. Oh, no, we already got that one. I had to back up. I forgot. We had that one Florida man is here, says, I listened to all 3 hours of the podcast. Gupta was very careful to try to redirect and pass blame. Sanjay must have done the show on behalf of CNN to try to assuage any ill feelings that Rogan has towards the network. Seems like an easy defamation case for Joe. I know civil law bores you, but do you think Sanjay did anything to help CNN? I don't think Rogan allowed him to sidestep the defamation issue. Funny, ironic that Rogan wants Gupta to get COVID since Sanjay wanted Joe to get the jab. What? Look, I mean, yeah, I think that, look, I'm not a civil lawyer, but what CNN did, I thought was totally reprehensible. I think that Joe Rogan would have a valid claim there because it was actively malicious, right? It was knowingly malicious. It wasn't just an error. It was wrong. But is he going to do that and get bogged down in litigation and a lawsuit and all the bad publicity that goes with that? He already won. He just brought him in the court of public opinion, and he just won the verdict on that one. K-Cell says those ivermectin critics, the same ones who take $60 a day to pay for maternity leave, those are the elite hypocrites. That's from K-Cell. And another one from Look2G says, I absolutely loved watching Joe call out CNN to Gupta. These media outlets have been hyperbolic and lying to our citizens for years now. It's obvious to us. It's just nice to see one of theirs see the hypocrisy. Joe did a great job shining a mirror for Gupta to look into, and he did not let him squirrel out of that at all. He kept going, well, can we talk about the weather? Can we talk? It's raining out, Joe. Don't you go anywhere, is what Joe said. No, we're going to get through this one. Mr. Ed is here, says, people ask me if I watch CNN. I just say, nay. Thank you, humans, for allowing me to use your human medicine on the little Wrigley's. Oh, yeah, Mr. Ed's in the house. The horse. Leafy Bug says, Gupta went into the lion's den like Rogan was begging him to come on his show. The line to get on Rogan stretches to the moon. This media doctor was there to sell his crappy book. What a loser. That's a great comment. I agree. Total loser. Seabiscuit is here. Says, Rob, here's an NIH link where they describe dosage of ivermectin for the treatment of COVID. We can't share that, of course. But Seabiscuit is here. He's a horse. And so, maybe it works for him. John Halgren is here, says, faced with clear evidence that he, the mainstream media, and the medical community had serious issues with injury data related to a certain medicine versus injury data related to certain illnesses, Gupta failed. Trust in the medical community will take a generation to restore. I held out no real hope for any restoration of what we had as a society before COVID mania. Yes, Rogan did the ground and pound. I enjoyed it. That's from John Halgren in the house. Great comment from John Halgren. By the way, John, I got a couple things in the mail from you today. Look what John Halgren sent me. We got a couple coasters came in. Check this out. Watching the Watchers. Come on, focus on that. Coaster in the house. Look at that. That's from John Halgren. Also did an R&R Law Group one. Look at that one. And then John posted a video on Locals some time ago. I think it was a toilet paper roll holder type of thing that had a number of different quotes on there. And so he made different coasters with these different quotes. We've got one that says, be skeptical, but learn to listen. That was one that John added. The others come from the 4 agreements. These are the 4 agreements that I reference regularly here. Don't make assumptions. We also have don't take anything personally. We have always do your best right here. And then we have be impeccable with your word, the final coaster. And I absolutely love them. John sent me a bunch of them. Thank you for sending those over, John. Really appreciate it. If you're looking for some of John's work, check out Halgren Creations right there. Let's see. Focus in on that. You can see where that goes. Halgren Creations on Instagram and halgrencreations.com. Very nice. Thank you for that, John. I appreciate it. Hope you and your family are doing well. We have Look2G says, the Rogan and Gupta clip felt so good to rewatch. Thanks for that. I know. I've watched it several times. It was really good. And I wasn't even going to do a segment on it, but I wanted to watch it again because it's that good. We have another one. Deadmau5 says, when YouTube tried to whack your channel a few weeks ago, he posted something over on Locals. Let's see what this was. Look how they massacred my boy. They're trying. We're still here. We're still alive and kicking, but we'll see where that goes. We have another one from Unknown says, you can see Gupta couldn't defend his employer in that viewpoint. I will never listen to him. It's fair. I don't think you should. Ghost Gunner says, I honestly wouldn't say calling ivermectin a horse dewormer is a lie if it's used to deworm horses. That's technically correct. It's just disingenuous. And obviously, shouldn't be said to imply that's all it does, especially by a news network. So there should be anger, but not for lying, but for misrepresenting the truth, which I guess is on par for CNN. That's from Ghost Gunner. Good comment on it. Yeah, I mean, yes, technically, I think you could say that. But they knew what they were doing. They were implying that Joe took horse dewormer when it was prescribed for a human by a doctor for off-label use for a particular purpose. Sweet Potato says, sexiest man alive, Sanjay Gupta? Says, LOL, stop though. What's sexy was Joe Rogan helping Sanjay understand that people aren't worried about their healthy kids getting COVID for the same reason Sanjay is not worried about COVID because he's vaccinated. The whole interview was really satisfying. Rogan just calling out his BS one thing at a time. My man. That's from Sweet Potato. Yeah, Rogan's good, man. There's a reason why he is where he is. Three Girlies says, could Rogan actually sue CNN for defamation? Yeah, I think he could, right? He's a public figure. And so oftentimes the public figure threshold is not met because you need what's called actual malice, meaning you have to actually have a maliciousness behind it. If you say something erroneous or you have a good faith basis for believing in something or something's partially true, well, then that's all sort of fair game. You're a public figure, signed up for that when you entered into that arena. But if it is something that is like actually malicious, if they're all saying, he took like a horse paste, what? And they're all dunking on that. I think that is making something into something that it is not, right? It's saying that he did something that he did not do. And if you dig into that, if I was a juror, I'd be like, yeah, actual malice. They were dunking on him all day. No problem at all with that one. So I think it reaches that standard. D-Rod says, I can't stand Lemon or Gupta. Gupta is a doctor, doesn't practice medicine. Gupta just talks about it. On Lemon, do you remember when Cuomo showed him a cognitive test given to Trump and Lemon failed to identify animals in the picture? Lemon confused an elephant for a rhino. Lemon, Gupta, Cuomo should not be on TV. I prefer death to CNN. Oh, that's great. I prefer death to CNN. That's a strong statement, but I don't think that you're wrong about it. We have another one. Thunder7 says, Gupta was trying to frame Rogan as a terrorist with his nasty comment about entering the lion's den and acting as if he was going to attack him. Gupta couldn't sing and dance out of an interview as Rogan pressured him to admit that ivermectin is a Nobel Prize and it's a drug used by humans for decades. The truth wins over the lies and propaganda when it's allowed to be shown. Gupta is a brilliant doctor, but part of the CDC, World Health Organization Club, and Rogan schooled him real good. That's from Thunder7. Yeah, I think he did. Let's see. The Last Villain says, mental illness is pervasive in the cult. They don't live in reality. He must have really thought Joe was a caricature they invented at CNN. The elite think that they can win every conversation. Joe dragged him. It was awesome. It was pretty good. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. Monster One says, even after CNN went right back to saying it, they doubled down. Rogan needs to start suing. He might, at some point. He's probably tired of it. Leafy Bug says, Rob, do you think Rogan's doctor has a decent defamation claim? I'm not sure the doctor does, because you'd have to show the doctor was harmed. Right? Like, you can't just sue on principle. There needs to be some sort of damages there. And I don't see that there. The defamatory material is the inference that Rogan's doctor treated him with veterinary medication. Doctor isn't a public figure, doesn't have to meet the actual malice standard. Doctor could be identified by people who know him or Rogan's doctor, which would be quite a lot of people, I imagine. And the republication of the material is defamatory. It's massive. Yeah, it's a good question, Leafy Bug. I think you have to show some damages. I think the rest of your analysis is quite good. That yeah, maybe the doctor wouldn't need to meet the actual malice standard, but you'd have to show some harm, some consequences of that. If you could, then I think that it might be worth it. But as I said, I think Joe Rogan really got what he wanted out of it. Avalon Acre says, Gupta is nothing but a puppet. Kudos to Joe for calling him out. Good to see you, Avalon. Tree Mendes is here. One of your neighbors on Locals, Z-Dog, did a show. Rogan versus Gupta. Rogan owned Gupta at a couple of points, but Gupta held his own a lot of the time as well. Apparently, towards the end, Gupta told Rogan that he likes the way Joe thinks, and Joe said the same of Gupta. The media on both sides are picking and choosing snips from the show, saying Rogan won, Gupta won. I think all in all, it was a good conversation because two people from two different sides that both managed to make some good points, were respectful the entire time. I think we need more of that. Unfortunately, things that Gupta said after being on Rogan ruined all of that, so I guess I'll enjoy the clips of Rogan putting Gupta in his place. Yeah, I mean, look, he went in there and he was nice. He played ball, and after the fact came back out and didn't stand by anything he said. Wrote an entire article about this, didn't change anything. We're all still, Rogan's still succumbing to misinformation. No, he's not. Your stinking organization is the one who started the whole thing. And so it's like you go in and you make up with somebody. I'm never going to do that again. I'm glad we came to terms, and I'm glad we see eye to eye now. And then the person leaves your meeting and goes and does it again. And you just go, that guy's a real piece of work, isn't he? Yeah, that's exactly what happened with Gupta. Goes out there, then goes on Don Lemon's show. Yeah, basically was horse dewormer, I guess, Don. Oh, God. Have a spine, buddy. Jeremy Matrita says, Rob, I never believe what the media says, which is why Fake Book Whistleblower was all planned out in an attempt to manipulate Congress. When the lamestream media jumps on a topic, it's the opposite of what they are saying. CNN isn't a news organization. They're a business of selling ads. Glad Joe Rogan is such a tough cookie. Me too. I like that interview a lot. Anderson Cooper is here, says, Sanjay Gupta is so stunning and brave for standing up to that racist, sexist, neo-Nazi Rogan. In other news, 10 reasons why mandating the vaccine is not racist, says some fascist scientist. Aren't you glad the media gets to determine what's true and what is not? Less and less of that is happening there, Anderson. Joey Bandolero says, that's weird. The vaccines aren't approved either. Well, according to the CDC and follow the guidelines everywhere, of course, that hasn't stopped anybody from administering it. Really makes you go, that's from Joey. So the CDC, follow the guidance over there. D-Rod says that the NIH is talking about some recommendations. We have another one from Ty Livin, says, spineless. I've just lost all respect for the good doctor. That's from Ty Livin. Good to see you, Ty. Robert Allen says, heart medicine warfarin. It's also rat poison. So you have multiple uses for different drugs, on label, off label, all of it. That one Florida man says, does Don Lemon think that Joe weighs as much as a horse? It's a good question. Or were they taking the similar doses? I don't know. The last villain says, Gupta definitely drafted this narrative. If his publisher didn't force him on, he never would have gone. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what happened there as well. Greg Murat says, Don Lemon missed the most important question. Sanjay, did Rogan recover without the vaccine? It's a good question. He would have had to say, yeah, he did. Miles Away says, the point is thousands are taking horse dewormer because they can't get our prescriptions for the other one. Both Gupta and Rogan perpetuate the shaming by not saying so. That's a good point. Tweak says, F Gupta and all the rest of them. Fair point. Geomancy Game says, I really wish people would stay out of other people's medical stuff. It's just stupid for some doctor who I'm not a patient of to have any opinion about my medical treatments. That's also fair. We have Leafy Bug says, can we get a big, beautiful spotlight of accountability for Mr. Gupta, is what he says. Yeah, my friends, that we'll shine together with your help that big, beautiful spotlight for Sanjay Gupta of accountability and transparency. You punk. Stop with the medical misinformation. Dr. Fauci says, how dare you defend my boy and not believe him? He's the sexiest man alive we've ever seen. Former LEO says, if I buy a chicken for my cat and 2 weeks later I broil a chicken for myself, then technically I was eating cat food. Yes, technically you were. I guess. X says, Gupta is like all corrupt politicians, celebrity, and media figures. They use their platform of power to lie. They make wild claims like horse dewormer, policer, white supremacist, Trump's a Nazi, all that stuff. Everyone here in Locals knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's exactly why Joe refuses to answer questions, because he's a liar and a failure. Anyways, have a good weekend, Rob. Some of the comments on Locals are hilarious. It's true. Everybody's hilarious. I mean, I was crying earlier. Because Santa Claus is ruined. It's horrific. Gupta says, look, Rob, Joe is a white supremacist neo-Nazi, has a huge fan base. So shut the hell up, put your mask on, and get your shots. All hail Lord Fauci. No, that's from Gupta. Last villain says, side note, check out Scott Gottlieb on Megyn Kelly. Glad these people are being exposed. Only way people will get red-pilled. They have to see it for themselves. From the last villain. Couple more. Sweet Potato says, going to get high and drunk with casual conversation equals the lion's den? Tell me you don't read the Bible without telling me you don't read the Bible. very dramatic, to go in there and talk with Joe Rogan, one of the most, down-to-earth guys on the planet. Mustang Jeff says, just when did Gupta become the final word on that drug? Well, he's a scientist doctor, and he's on CNN. He's the final word on everything. I'm not Gas says, FYI, I'm the funniest, which is, it's hard to tell. Sometimes I can't tell who's actually writing the comments, which is why it's so funny. But I think you're up there. You're on the list there. I'm not Gas. We have another one. Came over from YouTube from Curtis Bartle. Curtis says, please stay live on YouTube. Can we still watch it live? So it's kind of going to be live, right? It's called a premiere. And a premiere means it's going to sort of feel like this exactly, but I'm not actually going to be live on YouTube. So the chat will still work the same way. Zulu tells us that the super chats will still work the same way. I'll be around. I'll be probably watching the chat and kind of chatting in on things, but I just won't be doing it live. And the reason being is because if I actually stream live like I'm doing now on YouTube, once the stream is over, it just considers that live stream like a dead event. It doesn't promote. It pulls it directly out of the algorithm. So if I promote it like a show, like a pre-recorded premiere, we're going to see what that does to the numbers. And it really is not going to change much anything else other than it's just technically going to be 2 hours or so after we record it. So it's really probably not going to feel like anything different at all, since we don't take, since I really, I'm mostly interacting with the locals chat. I really am not really, spending much time communicating with YouTube because we have a different workflow now to take the questions through locals. So I know it feels weird. I know it feels like things are going to change, but we're just going to try it for a little bit. If it doesn't work out, if everybody hates it and tells me, Rob, you're a moron, well, then I'll change. I like to modify things. I live to serve the people. But that is all the great questions that came in. Nope, 2 more from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I'm Not Gas says, I am the funniest. Just admit it. Okay, we'll leave it there. Dr. Gupta says, Rob, you're just jealous you don't have Emmys like I do. But have a great weekend. And you do the same, Doctor. That is it for me for the day, my friends. Let's welcome some new members who came over and joined us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Sovereign Lion signed up, Sovereign Lion 90. We've got Lynn Fish. We have Germs, Sniper 275, Lau Patricia, Paula Revere, HSDNP, Ty Livin in the house, Maxim 27, Unbridled Form, Aviatrix, Burnt to a Crisp, and Let's Be Fair. All signed up over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And we have our monthly meetup coming up Saturday, November 6th, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And so one final reminder that starting next week, the live portion of this show will not be streamed on YouTube. But K. Bean says, Rob, will you participate in the chat occasionally and reassure Lean? Yes, I will, Lean. I'm not going to abandon you people, especially you, Lean. I would never do that. But and listen, we are probably also going to do live streams on YouTube as well, but just not always, right? It's not going to be like this because this is just not the right format for YouTube, and that's all it is, right? Live streaming is the better format for Twitch, but it's not really good for YouTube. So I just have to I have to put the right content in the right places on the internet for it to do well. It's like using the right tool. Like you wouldn't hit a nail into a board with a screwdriver. You'd use a hammer. So we're going to put the recorded content on YouTube, put the live content on Twitch and Rumble and Locals, and we'll see what happens. I think it'll be fun. But yeah, of course, I'm going to hang out and poke around. Definitely hang out with Lean. I got to keep tabs on Zulu, see what he's saying and getting into trouble, over there. So it's going to be a whole thing. And I appreciate you understanding some of the tweaks and changes. I think, it's all going to work out. I'm just moving some stuff around. So anyways, Saturday, November 6th at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And that, my friends, is it for me for the day. I want to thank everybody for joining us this week. We're going to be back here, same time, same place, to do it all over again on Monday, 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man, everybody else have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. Unplug from politics a little bit because got to rest up. Let those batteries recharge because we got to get back here and do it all again on Monday. We got a lot to get to. I'm looking forward to seeing you then. Have a tremendous weekend. Be well, my friends. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.